Am I making this video out of my own free will, or is it the inevitable and necessary next thing to happen in the series of actions in my life? That's right, today we're going to talk about free will, everyone's favorite philosophical conversation to have. Why not me too? I suppose the other option is, or is there someone off to the side holding a gun to my head making me do this video? So free will, we all know what that is, right? It's the idea that we can choose freely what to do, the actions that we take in our lives. And of course, free will is kind of an intuitive thing, right? We sort of all operate under the assumption that we have free will. I mean, all concepts of morality and good and evil kind of rest on the idea that we choose our actions and we choose to do good things or bad things. Of course, for the theists out there, that's when you have your first major issue with free will, because if God is all-knowing, then God sees the future. So does that mean if God can see what I'm going to do next, that I don't have free will? That's a whole can of worms that this video isn't really about. So let's ignore the religious question for now, because theologians much more smarter than I am, have dealt with that. So let's just look at free will from a purely human standpoint. Of course, the extreme kind of free will is what's called libertarian, not to be confused with the political stance, the political belief. Libertarian free will, it's kind of the extreme existentialist free will that everything we do, we have free will to make all of our choices. Okay, so that's one extreme. Now, of course, you hear people from time to time talk about, oh man, science says that free will is just an illusion, man. we don't really have it. And it's like, what are you supposed to say in response to that? Okay, cool, depressing, cool. I've read about some studies where they measure your brain waves and then they have someone do some kind of action and it shows that the brain wave, the subconscious brainwave, happened before the person was aware of making the choice. And so it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? This person wasn't consciously making a decision. Oh no, oh crap. That's a little wrench in things, isn't it? And of course, we all know when you think about it, your thoughts kind of come from nowhere. You didn't choose to have your thoughts, right? So that's already starting to cut down a little bit at the extreme free will position. Of course, there's no way to prove that free will is real because I can't go back in time and then choose a different path. So for all I know, everything I do is what had to happen. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't have done anything else if I wanted to. I had to make this video. I couldn't have made any other video. So don't blame me if you don't like it. I had to make it. All right, so the opposite of free will, the opposite extreme is determinism, which basically the idea is that existence, the universe, is like this system, and it's a bunch of dominoes that were let loose at the very beginning of time, and everything that happens, including our decisions, are just another domino falling. It's inevitable. It has to happen this way. There's no other way it could have happened. Of course, that's really depressing to think about because it's like, okay, well, it's like I'm in a, what do you call it, a rail shooter video game where I'm just getting pulled along through everything. Why am I even here? Am I just an observer? And just as there's no way to prove free will, there's no way to really disprove determinism, right? For all I know, every word that's coming out of my mouth is just the inevitable word that had to come out of my mouth next because of everything that ever happened to me in my life and in my parents' life and going all the way back to the beginning, the start of it all. So what's the big problem with determinism? It kind of negates morality. Any idea of morality, of choosing between good and evil, it's sort of just at that point a big show because pure determinism would state that I don't have a choice if I do something good or something bad. It's just what I had to do. It's just maybe I thought I was making a choice, but really I wasn't. It was just the next domino to fall. And that would be really unfair because that means we're throwing people in jail. They couldn't help it that they killed someone. It wasn't their fault. It was determinism. Determinism made them do it. It's kind of interesting because, in a way, free will is a very chaotic way of looking at the universe. And not chaotic so much as talking about the actions that are actually happening, but chaotic in terms of the through line. If free will is true, then it could go anywhere at any time. There's an infinite number of possibilities that human history can go. On the other hand, determinism would be a very strict, straight line that cannot be deviated from, a very orderly view of the universe. Speaking of orderly views of the universe, let's take a quick commercial break. Get your 30-day free trial of An Orderly Universe today, only $9.99 a month once you forget to cancel your free trial. Thanks for sitting through that commercial break. It was deterministic. I didn't have a choice. That's where the universe told me it had to go. Now, when it comes to free will and determinism, there are two basic camps. One is the incompatible camp, who say that free will and determinism cannot exist together. They cannot coexist. You cannot make a bumper sticker that says coexist and has free will and determinism on it. And that's because this would be holding on to these two extreme definitions of free will versus determinism. One has to be true, the other has to be false, 100%. No compromises. And when you start to argue the incompatible viewpoint either way, that's when it starts to get a little bit, dicey maybe. On the other hand, there are people who say that these two things can be compatible. I first heard this explained by Alan Watts, one of my favorite teachers. And the way he explained it was, basically, at every moment in our lives when we're making a decision, we don't have the infinite number of choices to pick from, right? At any moment when we are choosing to do something, choosing an action, we only have a limited number of choices. And so on the one hand, there is some determinism going on that the number of things that we can do is limited, but we have free will within that system. If we had pure, going crazy off the wall free will, it would be overwhelming. It would be like pure chaos all the time. How could you possibly make a decision if you were aware of everything that you could do? This is going back to what I mentioned earlier. Your thoughts kind of come from nowhere. Like, for instance, me making this video today, I don't have total free will to choose any video topic I want out of the infinite number of video topics there are, because I can't think of them all. So I was picking between, I have a notebook where I've written down 20 to 30 different ideas that I was looking at and going between. Those ideas came to me from my subconscious and I wrote it down. And so I freely chose this video idea out of the ones that I thought of, but I was not free to think of everything else in the world, So there is some level of determinism. You are limited. You don't have total freedom. But within those confines, you have freedom to do what you want. It's sort of like a game, like soccer or something. You can play soccer any way you want, but there are only certain things you can do. You have to kick the ball. You have to go within the lines. You're limited, but within that, the game can go an infinite number of ways, despite the limitations. Basically, you can't do what you can't think of, and what you think of is kind of out of your control. I personally, that's the way I look at it. I believe that there is free will, but it's limited. It has its limitations. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And over here I've got our August book that we're reading. We'll discuss it at the end of August. A Gentleman in Moscow. Please pick it up if you haven't already. It's a great book. I'm loving it. Link is in the description. Y'all take care. Stay cool and attractive. I'm exercising my free